They're actually trying to cancel Joe Rogan. I mean, they've tried to cancel him before, I guess, but they literally can't do it. He's Joe Rogan. It's the biggest podcast in the world. And he just signed an exclusive deal with Spotify. Maybe there's a provision in his contract. I don't know. Now, this article I have pulled up gets into the nitty-gritty details of what they're trying to do. But the cancel attempt on Joe is actually a little bit more than just this one article. They're attacking him because he apparently said, I can't repeat it, but he said masks are for the B word. A bunch of people went nuts and said he's endangering lives and all this stuff. A bunch of articles popped up saying Bill Burr smacks down, strikes back, calls out Joe Rogan. And Joe is just like chilling with his buddy, having a cigar. It is the silliest thing. But in this clip, Joey Diaz, 10 years ago, made some pretty, I think he's joking, but he claimed that if women wanted stage time, they had to service him in a manner of speaking. Joe then laughs about it and says, how many girls? And he says something like 25. It's so dumb. Taken out of context. We're seeing a lot of people come to Joe's defense. Like, nah, it's not going to happen. You're not going to cancel Joe Rogan. But let's just be real, man. Even if, this really was as bad as they say, considering they probably took it out of context. It's just not going to happen. I don't see there ever being a point at which Joe Rogan actually gets canceled. I mean, unless he personally comes out right now and says something insane. I'm talking about specifically old things he said in the past. I really doubt it, man. There's a kind of legacy protection that he has and many other comedians have that people like me, that we don't have this, right? So I've noticed that in cancel culture, it's very easy to get rid of an internet personality who doesn't have legacy standing. But Jimmy Kimmel, for instance, he goes on hiatus, right? Because of that whole blackface scandal. But look at Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Sarah Silverman. They've faced some kind of backlash, but they're fine. They get away with all this stuff. And there's a bunch of others too. I'll avoid naming them. But there's one particular super anti-Trump personality who's been in the industry for a really, really long time and won't shut up about Trump being awful. And it's a bummer because I used to be a big fan. And this individual does voice acting for some extremely offensive characters and has in the past said very, very offensive things. Yet these people seem to be immune to cancellation. So let me just break it down for you, huh? Some people have legacy power. Never going to get canceled. It's not going to happen. Don't ask me how or why. Because sometimes some people do. I don't know. It's not going to be Joe. Let's read this. Let's read the story and see what's up. 0 F's given. Angry internet's attempt to cancel Joey Diaz for abusing female comedians slammed by fans. So specifically, Joey was the one who made the joke. But because Joe Rogan laughed about it, they apparently announced there's an artist for Magic the Gathering, the card game, got canceled, banned, fired basically, because she followed Mike Cernovich and Jack Posobiec, among other things. But that's basically it. These people are insane, Bro Bible reported that Joe Rogan and comedian Joey Diaz are under some intense heat as a clip of an old podcast took over the internet. The clip sees Diaz brag about coercing female comedians for services in exchange for stage time at a local comedy club. In the midst of the Me Too and Believe Women movement, many people disgusted by Diaz finding women abuse funny took to Twitter to cancel the comedian. There was an intense split in the opinion, though, as loyal and diehard fans of the comedian rushed to his defense, claiming that this was a decade-old clip and that people can change. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, man. When has that stopped other people from canceling other people? All right? For some reason, some people are off limits. Legacy power, I guess. I don't know. If this was a YouTuber, they'd be gone in 2 seconds. 2 seconds. The clip was a short one with over 4,900 retweets and 8,000 likes. That's $200 million. Joe Rogan's favorite comedian, Joey Diaz, all he ever talks about is abusing women or assaulting homosexuals. Straight says it. While tears of laughter streamed down Rogan's face, no sign of a joke in sight. No, that was the joke. You see, some comedians, like Sarah Silverman, just say shockingly offensive things in an effort to rile people up, and that's the humor. You also may have seen, a roast at some point in your life where all they do is insult each other in very, very harsh ways, crossing the line on purpose. I saw this clip, and it's also raining like crazy, mind you. I saw this clip, I saw Joe Rogan laugh, and for all you know, here's what they do in these clips, right? Joey Diaz says, I told these women, blah, blah, blah. For all you know, Joey Diaz says, so this guy comes to me and goes, I told these women, you got to do this, that, and this. You don't know what was said. Now, Joe does say, how many women have you done this to? For all you know, Joey Diaz says, could you imagine if I had a history where I would say things like, if you want to, you see the point. It's very, very easy to strip out the qualifiers to make it seem like Joe's laughing at something he's not really laughing at. But more importantly, it may just be very simply that they made the joke and Joe laughed at it. Congratulations. Welcome to comedy. That was the joke. It was shocking and offensive. It was over the top. I don't care, though. Well, Hotep Jesus steps up and he says, we're not canceling Joe Rogan. I don't care what he did. Bravo, good sir. I agree. I don't care what he did either. He's not getting canceled. Now, look, okay, I'll wrap it up here because I'll move on to a little bit more of the censorship talk. You're not going to cancel Joe Rogan, but I'll tell you what else. For some reason, Joe seems to be fairly safe from all of these old attacks. But somebody who's constantly under fire is Tucker Carlson. The idea I'm trying to get across here in this segment is something protects Joe. And I honestly don't know what it is. It could be that Tucker Carlson goes a little further than Joe does, to be honest. It could be that Tucker Carlson hasn't personally voiced support for someone like Bernie Sanders. No idea. But activists have been trying to shut down Tucker Carlson nonstop. And he is the most popular primetime cable TV host. They've been able to get his advertisers to pull out several times now, but he's still surviving. Let's see the story from the Daily. Let's read this from the Daily Mail. Tucker Carlson slams big tech companies for censorship and liberal bias after Twitter flagged his post mocking Seattle's Chaz as potentially sensitive content. They say in a withering monologue on his Fox News program Friday night, the outspoken conservative raged. The left's goal is to make dissent invisible and therefore irrelevant. Meanwhile, these same tech companies make it very easy for 12-year-olds to watch adult content. They have no problem with that at all. But political views they disagree with? No. Gone from the wind, too scary, tells you everything about what they care about and who they are. The drama began last week when Carlson took to Twitter to share a segment from his program which mocked Seattle's police-free Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. He basically said, new tourism ad for America's newest neighbor. And it said the following media includes potentially sensitive content. Now, that's not the worst censorship in the world, but it shows you how social media companies will block out certain ads or certain videos that are offensive to the left. Now, I want to wrap this back together with Joe Rogan, okay? Joe recently came out and said the media is ignoring Joe Biden's cognitive decline. And he said it a lot. He said it now. And all of a sudden, these clips start popping up. They try to cancel Joe Rogan for not just this one reason. Trying to cancel him for saying, don't wear masks or whatever, or insulting, people who wear masks, or over this Joey Diaz thing. And I've noticed something really interesting. I went on the Joe Rogan podcast 2 months ago now, and it was a pretty big episode. I think right now it's at like 6.3 million views. It was the biggest episode he did in the month of April. So thank you to everybody who watched and checked it out. But I noticed right after this, there was an influx of sock puppeting. Whoa, really big lightning. That caught me by surprise. I noticed that on various social media posts, there was brigading. Sock puppet accounts were going after Joe and were going after me. And I thought it was really, really funny that all of a sudden, all of these weird progressives were outraged, were furious. And I think it's because they realized when you look at this podcast I did with Joe, the biggest, a lot of the things we talked about, not good for the left. I'm constantly criticizing them. Overwhelmingly thumbs up. This led to a boost in viewership for me, I guess. It led to more subscribers. It was good for Joe. He got a lot of views, probably made some cash off that episode. And it showed a lot of people what was really going on in the world, at least from my perspective and from Joe's perspective. It was a great conversation. We talked about aliens too. Come on. It was fun. Well, I think what happens now is Joe is making this political talk more, and he's a threat. He's a serious threat. So I don't think it's necessarily a coordinated effort. I'm not trying to say there's a grand conspiracy or anything, but when Tucker Carlson gets flagged repeatedly, it's because these activists are censorious and they do these things. So after I do this episode with Joe, they come after his subreddit, they come after, Twitter, they come after me, and they start spamming it with photos and images, trying to make claims about who I really am. And I think it's because they're desperately trying to dissuade people from listening, to scare them, because they realize there is a reality and access to information. Well, the truth will set you free. Take a look at, the people who have been canceled. I mentioned the Magic the Gathering artist earlier, canceled for following Mike Cernovich. And the way I described it the other day on the IRL podcast is, you have people who play Magic the Gathering. You have people in these subcultures, and you need to isolate them from information. The reason they would fire someone for following another person is because that person is collecting information from the other side and then probably sharing those views. They need to cut the cord so the information can't flow to the cult. This is what Tucker Carlson does. It's what I do. It's what Joe Rogan does. Joe is pretty much the worst because he has an audience of many people who actually are much more left than I am. So that's why they'd probably go after him, especially as he rags on Biden as much as he does. Now, look, I think they tolerated Joe for a long time because he propped up Bernie, Tulsi, Andrew Yang. Now, Tulsi wasn't their favorite, but now that they're all out and it's Biden, and Joe repeatedly slams Biden, now they're going to try and cancel him. Tucker Carlson is just the obvious example. But we'll see how this plays out, obviously. I've got more segments coming up in a few minutes, so stick around, and I will see you all shortly.